It was too good to be true, wasn't it? How naive it was of us to think it would last, but what happened? Raven Software already did the thinkable and nerfed the combat shotgun. What does this mean? Well, it basically means, if you saw my last video, we can no longer one-shot to the body anymore, which I know some people probably thought that was overpowered. I thought it was fine. It was pretty limited range. So yeah, we can't really do that anymore. I know, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, the span of it being a thing was so short and now it's gone. But here we are together to get over this trying and tragic time, and I'm here to say it isn't all bad. Even though this update did nerf the combat shotgun and the two other shotguns, the combat is the main focus of this video, and it's still a great shotgun and probably better than the other ones available, at least the pump actions for sure. First, let's talk about what changed in the patch notes, and then what wasn't stated in the patch notes, because what update would be complete without stealth changes, and then we'll go over what I think you should be running on the combat shotgun. They said in the notes that the combat shotgun's maximum range and the second damage range were reduced. It does give us in-game units, which is ambiguous, but I believe that in-game units are in inches like in Vanguard, and then we can just convert that to meters. So basically, the max damage range for the combat shotgun went from about 3.8 meters to 3.5, and the next range went from 6 meters just about to 5.5 meters. Not too bad, right? Think about the Model 680. It has a max range of about 3.3, at least last time I checked months ago, and the two-shot range of about 5 basically. So it's still good, but the huge issue here is that the base combat shotgun, unless you hit headshots, will only two-shot in the max damage range. Yeah, you heard that right. Usually the first two ranges for a pump action are two-shot kill ranges, but the base combat, only the max damage range. So up to 3.5 meters, you can two-shot players with it. After that, you need to hit headshots to get a two-shot kill up to 5.5 meters. I mean, that's pretty dumb. That's a pretty bad balancing method in my opinion. I mean, what the hell? But don't fret. I know I was moping around a little bit when I first discovered that because I was just like, how is this possible? But you see, most people don't realize that the gun by default is a 16 gauge shotgun, which is basically a huge no-no. You never want to run this gun in 16 gauge. The secret here is you need to run the 12 gauge ammo type pretty much anytime you touch this gun, basically any time. The patch seems to have affected many attachments on the shotguns, and the barrels and ammo types were touched as well. Now 12 gauge, the ammo type, is a godsend on this gun. Our max damage range of that 3.5 meters, that goes up just about to 7.1 meters, then up to about 11 meters from there, and it can still two-tap in all of those ranges. So you see, there's no reason to fret. In fact, this 12 gauge version of the gun basically has a two-shot range 3 times higher than the max damage range for the traditional pumps in the game. It's even better than the 410 Ironhide, and you don't even have to hit headshots. So kind of weird balancing, but I'm okay with it. It's bound to be nerfed again at some point, but if you were thinking the combat is useless after the nerf, just equip 12 gauge ammo and you basically have the best pump action shotgun and best non-spammy shotgun in the game again. We did have some stealth changes to the barrels as well, like I said. If you remember, the sawed-off barrel and the chariot barrels did seem to increase damage a slight bit, but they also seem to increase range, which was kind of weird. Now, there doesn't seem to be any difference to the damage they do, and the ranges are actually reduced. What this means is that other than getting a nice movement speed bonus, really these barrels are useless, and I do not recommend using them unless you want that widespread in the movement speed from that shorter barrel. In fact, most of the barrels on this gun you can really avoid if you really wanted to. The precision barrel is nice with extra headshot damage, but it doesn't make the gun significantly better, and the damage for torso is reduced slightly, but it still seems to two-shot pretty well at further ranges. You just have to be a little bit more consistent with your pellets. I'm gonna be honest, it's not bad. It's actually a pretty good barrel, but you could take it or leave it. It boosts the max damage range to about 7.5 from 7.1, and headshots do deal more damage. Then you can also two-tap outside of that max damage range despite having slightly less torso damage, if you use 12 gauge of course. But I don't like the movement speed and the sprint to fire penalty, so honestly I usually just avoid it if I'm going for kind of traditional shotgunning. Hitting headshots is generally something shotgun players probably won't do anyway, but if you have buck and slug or slugs, it can one-tap headshot in that max damage range with the precision barrel, which is really nice and it catches a lot of people off guard. But really, you can take it or leave it with this barrel because honestly it's a bit too risky just to rely on getting those headshots. The big barrel, the Framble 23 inch, is also nice with a boost to the max damage range of about 8.5 meters, which is pretty damn far, and the two shots that can really push range are impressive, but you're generally a bit slower. It's one of those big barrels, you know how it is. It's good, but again, the range is already so good on the shotgun with 12 gauge that it's not really a massive necessity. Plus, if you're gonna run slugs or buck and slug, the aim down sight speed is gonna be painful with these barrels. The last barrel is the Framble number 3, and it basically makes a comically small hipfire box, which is pretty cool and probably the most unique of the barrels. If you put a choke on it, just look at that. What the hell is that? I mean, what? It's funny because aim down sights actually widens the spread, so it has the opposite effect, and it's kind of hilarious. It is good, but I prefer not to have my shotgun do things like this. It's kind of strange, and the hipfire is way too tight for when I need it to be just a little bit wider. It's basically like hipfiring a sniper rifle, it feels like. So basically all barrels but the damage ones have a small place in the meta for the shotgun, but they aren't really needed, and I usually just run no barrel now just to keep my mobility intact. The next big change is buck and slug, which if you remember was pretty much the way we could only get one-shot kills to the body. Now you can't, I know, teardrop. The damage basically seems to match the base gun's damage in that range it's in, unless you hit headshots from what I can tell. So you are getting more range potential because of the slug, since pellets do disappear, but the slug doesn't. But the only real time it'll come in handy is if you hit headshots. Also, I think it's bugged, but for some reason 12 gauge buck and slugs cannot one-shot headshot, but the base gun with buck and slug can. Not really sure what's going on with that. But at the end of the day, buck and slug is still great. It's just not as amazing as it was and not as necessary. Like I said, just the base shotgun alone with 12 gauge is god tier already. So this is if you want to extend your range with slugs a little bit, and if you're a good player who can aim well and hit headshots, I'd say go ahead and use it, buck and slugs that is, because of the extra range potential. But if you prefer more of a standard shotgunning experience, go with packed powder or even incendiary shells. Incendiary is massively powerful as well, and you can basically 2-tap burn up to around 10 meters, which is the equivalent of a 2-shot of a max kitted out Model 680 with Dragon's Breath. I know there's a lot of information here, but really the bottom line is that this gun with 12 gauge is really all you need for a strong god tier pump action that's already better than everything else. The other stuff is just kind of dependent on how you want to play. If you want more mobility, just avoid the barrels entirely like I do. If you want as much range as possible, use the precision barrel with buck and slug or the Framble barrel on its own for max range. The big thing here though is to kit it out with 12 gauge ammo no matter what and never use the other ammo types, I promise. So for my class setup, this is essentially it. I use the adjustable stock because even though the sprint to fire speed isn't as good as the wire stock, it helps aim down sight speed, which I like. 12 gauge is necessary of course, the fabric grip again for sprint to fire speed, as well as the pistol grip for, you guessed it, sprint to fire speed. The choke is a great addition for any shotgun, and then for the perks, it's kind of up to you. Vital does seem to in fact increase damage to the chest area, but it isn't a massive boost, maybe like 5 points of health or so generally, so it's not really necessary. It's not going to unlock some secret potential, at least that I'm aware of currently, so you could just use it just cause why not? It's gonna help, it's not really gonna hurt. But the other perks are useful, like momentum for move speed after kills, or frenzy so when you kill someone your health starts to regenerate almost immediately. It's up to you though. Then you can use quick for perk 2, which is for increased sprint speed. As for the barrel, like I said, it's preference. I prefer no barrel, but the precision barrel is probably gonna be the best with buck and slugs, but it's more forgiving and can hurt newbie players, so it gives you more range and more headshot damage. Just be mindful of that. Overall, this shotgun is still a menace. I was really quick to write it off until I discovered that 12 gauge ammo basically turns it into an absolute monster of a pump action, so fear not everybody, pump action supremacy may still not be the meta, but it is absolutely not to be taken lightly, and this is, I can confirm really, the strongest pump action that we've had in Warzone by far. So give it a shot and let me know what you think, and that's just about gonna do it for this video guys, so leave a comment below, tell me what you think of these nerfs, specifically for the combat shotgun, which way do you like to run this gun, and with all that being said, I will see you in the next video.